Whenever you're ready, Deb, you're set to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fred.
You're
All
welcome.
right, we're calling 7:04. We're going to call the meeting to order. This meeting will be conducted virtually. The public will be given the opportunity to participate remotely through the advertised Zoom link or optional phone numbers identified in the public meeting notice. Application documents have been made available at civicclerk.com, hillsborough.civicclerk.com, in accordance with the public meeting notice. All applicants will be presenting remotely and will identify themselves before testifying. Let's stand for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2020 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin board at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex, and posted to the Township's website. Additional notice has been provided to communicate that this meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Governor's executive orders and pursuant to Public Law 2020 C11, which allows for meetings to be conducted electronically. I will do the roll call. Louise Wilkins is not here. Joanne Bertolini.
Joanne, unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, please.
I'm here.
Thank you. Neil Julian is not here. Michael Foley.
Here.
I am here. Thomas Almendinger.
Here.
Stephen Mastropolito.
Here.
Dr. Abrupta. And Committeeman Delcourt. Is Patrick Gorman here yet?
He is not.
He's not. And Assistant and Fred Kinsler.
I am here.
He is here. Thank you. There are no minutes to be reviewed, so we would proceed to business from the floor.
All right, if anybody from the floor has any business not on the agenda, you could raise your hand. Seeing none, Chairman, you can proceed.
Thank you. Okay, the application, review of applications is Pilgrim River LLC, doing business as the Avalon in Hillsborough. Let's start with that.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Mike Ogrodnik. I'm an attorney with Savo, Shaw, Gillespie, Ogrodnik, and Fisher in Somerville. I'm here on behalf of the applicant tonight. This is, I'm sure you're familiar, this is the property. It actually includes a couple of properties along Amaral Road and Brower Lane, known as the Avalon at Hillsborough and Bridgeway Care and Rehabilitation Center at Hillsborough. We're before the Board of Adjustment seeking preliminary and final site plan approval with C and D variances within the Gateway District. And the purpose of our application is construction of an additional 23 units, which would be 25 beds onto the existing Avalon Assisted Living building, associated structure with that. This application also proposes cleaning up some of the lots and merging lots 47, 48, and 49, which would then create a 7.42 acre lot housing these two senior care facilities. The existing Bridgeway Care and Rehabilitation Center is not proposed to be changed. However, there's some small parking areas to connect to the rear parking area of the proposed addition on site on lot 49. We have a couple of variances. The reason we're before the Board of Adjustment is because of the height variance. So even though this is an existing building and had existing approvals for the height, technically, if you expand, even though it's the same height, it necessitates a D6 height variance. There's also associated front yard setbacks, parking variances for the space size, parking lot landscaping for deviations from the parking lot landscaping, for minimum lot width. Again, these are all pre-existing nonconformities. There are some residential dwellings also on the subject properties that will have the wet detention basin in the rear yards. So the township planner has indicated that we need to reaffirm those use variances for the houses that remain unchanged. The wet basin pond is proposed to be constructed on lots 44.01 and lot 45 with a drainage access through lot 36. Other than that, tonight I have Don Pellegrino's the owner on behalf of the applicant, the representative from the corporations. We have Mike Ford, who's our professional engineer from Van Cleef Engineering Associates. We also have Ed Cook, who is our environmental professional. If we need to talk any specifics with him, he's an ecologist, of course, with Eastern States Environmental. It's been before your board a bunch of times. So unless there's any other questions, we can either swear in all the witnesses, and I would ask Mike Ford to go through the existing and proposed condition site plan. And Mike, you can, if you want to, you can handle the PowerPoint presentation from your PC.
How's that?
Great,
Hello.
thanks, Mike. Perfect.
Yes, thank you for letting me share. This is the presentation that's right on the Environmental Commission on the website, the township website. What I'm illustrating right now is architectural renderings. As Mr. Ogrodnik indicated, the application is for an addition to the existing facility, and I hope you can see my pointer I'm highlighting now. The left-hand portion of this rendering is the existing building, and then from this portion of the building back toward the rear of the property will be the addition. So this is the addition. We'll go to another view. This is basically a view from the east side of the building. And in a moment, I'll go to the site plan so you can see exactly where these views would be from. And then the next illustration is an illustration of the west side of the building, where this is the portion of the building that faces Bridgeway Rehabilitation Facility. I'll say a sister facility owned and operated by the same entity or the same individual that operates the Avalon. And this is, again, here's the existing building on the right-hand portion of your plan, and the addition would be to the left. This is at the rear of the site. And one thing I'd like to point out in this illustration is part of the addition element would be a upper level outdoor patio area. And all of this is to expand the capacity of the facility, as Mr. Ogrodnik said, by 25 beds. The existing facility has a capacity of 97 residents, so it would be a total of 122 beds. And this is, now I'll go to the site plan, which shows the existing condition. This is the existing condition plan, which is colorized. On the left-hand portion of the plan is Amwell Road, and that would be the south side of the property. West or off the page to the top would be Route 206, and just along the bottom of the page is the Route 206 bypass. What you see, existing facility or existing structures are at the top of the page, the Bridgeway facility. Then immediately adjacent to that is the Avalon facility, which is the primary subject of this application. The addition to the Avalon facility would be at the rear of the building. So for all intents and purposes, the front view of the site, as well as the access points to the site, will remain unchanged as part of this application. And then to facilitate the addition, and you'll see this in a moment when we go to the proposed condition, we're proposing parking to support the addition. And right now, there's an existing stormwater management detention basin at the rear of the Avalon facility, which actually also supports the Bridgeway facility. But you can see that that's immediately to the rear of the Avalon building. And to facilitate the addition and to provide parking as close as possible to the addition and the existing building, we're proposing to actually fill in this detention basin and provide for a more regional type of stormwater management facility along the eastern portion of the site. And that wet pond, as Mr. Ogrodnik stated, would be located on properties also controlled or owned by the applicant. And those properties currently have existing residences on them. There are 3 structures. They would remain unchanged as well. So again, the front appearance of the site from Amwell Road will essentially remain unchanged, but we'll have this regional basin at the rear of the properties. And because the rationale, obviously, I'll say, the reason for having it located at the rear of the site is generally the site now drains from east to west or toward the easterly property boundary, and just off site is a drainage feature. And associated with that drainage feature are some wetland areas, including a wetland, isolated wetland. What I'm pleased to report is, as part of this application submittal, we've already been to NJDEP, and actually as of Friday, September 25th, last week, secured the wetland permits from NJDEP for the filling of this little isolated wetland feature, which is 1/10 of an acre, and also some buffer averaging or transition area averaging associated with the disturbances at that existing detention basin, as well as the proposed detention basin. And now perhaps this is a good segue to the proposed condition. And now you see that this is a colorized version of the site plan that was submitted as part of the application. Now you see both the Bridgeway facility building as well as the Avalon facility highlighted in light brown. And then in a darker brown is the addition to the rear of the Avalon building, as was illustrated in that architectural rendering. It's a 3-story structure. So as Mr. Ogrodnik described, we're to the Board of Adjustment because while this site was rezoned not too long ago into the Gateway A zone, which does permit the proposed and existing uses, that is an extended care facility, if you will. Part of that zone change to really recognize the existing facility did not recognize the height of the existing facility as at 3 stories or approximately 45 feet high. So because we exceed the maximum allowable building height by more than 10% in the Gateway A zone, we're going to the Board of Adjustment for site plan approval for this addition. As I described, there's parking expansion associated with the addition. Part of the addition is over existing parking by default in order to expand the building, and we were impacting that parking, so we're making up for that parking as part of the parking expansion or new parking at the rear of the site over that existing basin. So the existing basin would be filled in. Besides this new parking being located close to the existing facility so that people that park there aren't walking too great a distance to the building, it also worked well with planning in that we were able to connect it to the existing Bridgeway parking. If you've ever visited the Bridgeway Rehabilitation and Care Facility, you'll notice that the main entrance is really at the rear of the building, and I'm highlighting it now with a porte-cochere. Then there's some parking immediately behind that building that does connect via a driveway in back of the Avalon building, and we're maintaining that vehicular circulation pattern. But if you
Excuse me,
go,
Mr. Ford,
Yes, sir.
Just 1 second. Debbie, I just want to note that Patrick joined the meeting at, 7:19.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Mike. Thanks.
Okay,
Sorry about that, Mike. Thank you.
no problem, no problem. But if you've been to the Bridgeway Rehabilitation Care Facility, you'll notice that a large portion of their parking at the rear is accessed via the driveway along the westerly property line, but it has dead-end access to those parking lanes. And I'll go back to the existing condition now so you can see what I'm talking about. And that is, there's these through lanes for the first 2 sections of parking, but the last 3 sections of parking are via dead-end parking routes, which is, while people can turn around and make K-turns if there's not a space available, certainly the more desirable condition would be what we're proposing, which is this through route. So there's this cross-access easement, ability to even share parking in a practical standpoint between the 2 facilities. And now there's a continuation of this good planning, if you will, element where we provide for through access lanes for all of the parking. So the new parking at the rear of the Avalon facility, while it forces us to fill in the existing detention basin, that I'll say negative and additional cost is, I think, outweighed by the long-term enhancement to the site by providing for this more fluent circulation and parking immediately adjacent to the building. So to the stormwater standpoint, we're proposing this regional stormwater basin on the easterly portion of the property in close proximity to the Route 206 bypass that's off-site. We're utilizing a wet pond so that we can utilize that for not only quantity control, but also water quality control. And part of our overall planning, if you will, is that this basin would not only accommodate these existing facilities, the expansion of the existing facility with the addition and the new parking, but also accommodate potential future build out or building on the front portion of these lots, which are also in the Gateway A zone, as well as a portion of property that's just to the west of the Bridgeway facility, so that this would be our regional basin. And again, I'll say good planning in that we provide for stormwater management in a centralized location. With regards to utilities, the existing buildings are serviced by public water and sewer. The Avalon building has on-site public water and sewer, and we would extend those facilities into the addition, so it'd be serviced by public sewer and water. Besides NJDEP, which I mentioned earlier, where we received, as of Friday, the permit to fill this isolated wetland, the GP6, as well as some minor buffer averaging. We're encroaching into the buffer, the existing buffer right by the existing detention basin in order to accommodate the filling of it and the grading around the new parking. And we're buffer averaging by making the buffer bigger along our northerly tract boundary where there's a larger portion of wetlands. So that area will be enhanced by making it larger. We've also been to the Somerset County, received their approval. That's dated May 5th, 2020. We're on a county road, Amwell Road, and as I stated earlier, we're not proposing any changes to the existing site access. That main driveway along the east side of the Avalon facility will remain essentially exactly where it's at, but we're actually proposing a little enhancement to that as well. If you've ever visited there, it's kind of a tight maneuver now because it's a straight shot to the back of the property, and there's not an easy turning movement, if you will, to pull in and drop off or pick up somebody at the existing main entrance to the Avalon building. So as part of this project, we're enhancing or correcting that area. We've also been to the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District and received their approval dated July 10th, 2020. With regards to environmental impacts, I'll go back to the existing features plan. You can see that this is primarily an open area today, with the exception of this area where the basin unfortunately has to go because that's the low or downslope. You know, in order to drain the site, we have to put the basin at the low side. So we're disturbing some wooded areas. A substantial portion of that wooded area by our tree survey is encumbered by early successional growth, the scrub cedars, if you will, or cedar trees. We're proposing tree mitigation and tree plantings around the new basin. And we are applying the township code ability or option with the economic hardship waiver. So we are proposing to plant tree mitigation plantings up to that 1.5% cost threshold of the overall project. With regards to disturbance, our overall tract, all the lands are about 21 acres. That includes all the areas that would drain to this detention basin. But essentially the project itself is really the Avalon facility with the addition. The lot just to the east of the Avalon facility would actually be merged with that lot, as would a landlocked piece of land that is lot 48 at the rear of the site. So that whole property would be 7.5 acres approximately, where the Avalon facility would sit. There'd be cross access easements to maintain that driveway access and use, or ability to circulate between the facilities. And then there would be a drainage easement over the rear of the properties where the detention basin would be located. And that drainage easement would allow for perpetual maintenance and operation of that stormwater management facility by the owners of the property. Lighting, we provided a lighting plan. There is, additional site lighting proposed where the new parking is to be located, as well as the modifications to the main access driveway along the east portion of the property. You can see, I think by this aerial, that our nearest neighbors are our own properties, that existing residents, and our nearest neighbors on the south side of Amwell Road by Steinmetz Lane are quite a distance away from us. All the activity is focused at the rear of the Avalon property. And I'll say that we are providing some lighting that's greater than the prescribed average intensity. But we felt in consultation with our lighting consultant, that would be consistent with lighting throughout the site, but also prudent given the use of the facility for assisted living, even for people visiting the assisted living residence, or the staff, which are round the clock staff coming in and out of the site. The overall operation isn't anticipated to change. The hours of operation, the way it functions. Right now we have a trash enclosure that's really shared by the two sites, located in the middle of the rear parking area. That would be maintained and used for the facility. And there is an existing generator right now and immediately adjacent to that trash enclosure. And as part of these site improvements or enhancements, one of the things that we made a revision to the plan more recently is with respect to those generator facilities. I'm sure many of the board members are aware of the major problems that happened at an extended care facility that lost power in another state in the US not too long ago. And as a result of that, there's mandated backup power at these facilities. So in order to accommodate that mandate and not only provide power for essential operation of the facility, but actual for, complete operation of the facility. Part of this project will be new generators for both buildings, and we're planning to locate them at the most remote rear portion of the site, immediately adjacent to the parking area extension. So that's part of this site enhancement package. Perhaps maybe I can, we're about 6.5 acres of total land disturbance. As I said, that we've already been to the soils, Somerset Union Soil Conservation District, approved by them. In fact, even these most recent plan revisions, we've made submittal to them, and I expect an updated approval from them in the not too distant future. So we think by the time we get to the Board of Adjustment hearing, I think in a week or two, August or October 7th, we'll actually probably have in hand all of our required outside agency approvals, even for the most current plan. And with regards to construction, we're hoping to start construction actually later this year. And with the process of Department of Community Affairs approval of the construction plans for the building and securing financing, the start of the addition would occur early next year. And it would be done in stages where we would complete the stormwater management facility improvements before we fill in the existing basin, then be able to fill in the existing basin, provide for the new parking before the existing parking is impacted, and then proceed with the building addition. So it actually, is, besides the site planning, there's already been some substantial planning and staging planning with the general contractor, preparing for the construction phase of the project.
Is that it, Mike?
Yes, sir. Yes. Oh,
Okay.
hi, Debbie. Yeah.
Does anybody any of the members of the commission have any questions for Mike?
Yeah, hi, Mike. It's Mike Foley here.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And maybe you said this, but so Avalon owns all of these properties within that yellow bold boundary?
Well,
Or
it's,
how does that working with the basin? I mean, are they separate properties getting an easement for the basin?
yeah, there are separate property owners, and it's, I'll say, more probably a function of financing and control of the properties, but ultimately, Mr. Pellegrino, who's on this call this evening, has control over all those partnerships. And,
Okay.
and what we're proposing with this detention basin and the easement over it for the control is really not any different than the existing condition, because actually this basin right now is located on the Avalon property, and it's within a drainage easement. And as I stated earlier, it actually services the Bridgeway facility already. So it's a similar setup existing as to what's proposed, which is, there'll be a drainage easement, and Mr. Ogrodnik will put together the maintenance responsibilities, and that'll all be recorded at the county clerk's office, just as the existing easement is.
Okay, so those residents are renting? They
Okay.
don't own
Yeah,
it.
The short-term plan for these 3 existing residences is to keep them. They're, since Mr. Pellegrino acquired those properties,
Okay,
there's been some maintenance to those properties. The old hydroponics had some greenhouses in back of it. It's been cleaned up in the properties. So in the near future, it would be continued to use as residence. In fact, there's right now it's inhabited by people that work for Mr. Pellegrino, which is, in this type of facility operation, it's actually an asset because it's, I'll say, from what I understand in lengthy discussions with Mr. Pellegrino, difficult to, find and maintain help in this industry. So by being able to provide, an opportunity for, work nearby, that actually is an enhancement. But ultimately in the future, it would be envisioned that this existing type of facility would continue to grow to the east. In fact, this is an assisted living facility with certain levels of care in Avalon. Bridgeway is another facility with, I'll characterize it as higher levels of care. And what's envisioned, hopefully in the not too distant future, but it's hard to predict what's going on now in the world, but we've already had some discussions and plans about another type of assisted living facility, light, that is with less higher levels of care on these portions of the property to the east. But right now it's staying the way it is.
So
With 3 houses.
this is Debbie Boyer. So I remember seeing an application a couple of years ago, and I don't know how far back it goes, of putting a separate memory care unit on those other lots where those houses are.
Right.
So when you talk about designing that regional basin, that is with the intention of that other building going in.
Well, and I was part of that, plan, and we actually prepared detailed site plans for that project, made a submittal, and then the applicant elected not to continue with that congregate care facility. That was all on one floor, a much larger facility, and the industry studies that were being followed by Mr. Pellegrino really told him to pump the brakes on that. But it would be something like that. It might not be identical to that. It likely would be multi-story and more, perhaps less care, not as high care as what the memory care facility. But again, like you're saying, it's something like that, but it's industry driven.
And that basin will handle that additional potential build out.
Yes.
And that basin is going to be deed restricted so that any future development would be built around it, right? You're not
Well,
going to
it
move
would-
it again, or
Yeah, it would be in an easement. We have conditions of that NJDEP wetland permit,
yeah,
which I think
before.
require for deed restrictions along the areas of the wetland and wetland transition area.
Right.
I would say, Mike, that, it's not envisioned, but I wouldn't think just like this one that we're filling, it's not like it could ever be out of the realm of possibility, maybe not in your lifetime or mine,
Right.
that something else might change. But right now, this is the low point. We're taking advantage of the low side of the property in the location of this basin. It's really, I'll say, good planning.
So Mike Ford, I'm not a stormwater person, and I don't know that much about wet ponds. Do they drain like a detention basin or no?
It would be similar to the pond on Amwell Road by the high school is really a regional detention basin. It always has a permanent pool, but occasionally it would raise up and then lower down to that permanent pool location.
And how does that happen?
It has an outlet structure just like any other detention basin, which controls the amount of flow that can exit the pond. And I'll say it's really, I'll say the permanent pool is not unlike the bottom of a dry basin. You have the storage above that permanent pool that allows for water to temporarily be detained, and the controlled outlet structure allows the water to exit at a controlled rate. The permanent pool aspect of it, where the water is always there, is more like a water quality feature, or is a water quality feature, so that it brings stormwater in, but allows for the, exiting of water quality aspects or treatment of the stormwater. And one of the other things, besides it being at the low point of the basin, we actually thought that this would also potentially be an aesthetic feature for the future development of the site, so that residents are not looking out at a big hole in the ground, but something that more, looks, I'll say, somewhat natural and beautiful.
Where is this basin going to drain to, Mike?
It drains to an existing wetland area along our easterly boundary, and then eventually down to that water course that I described earlier along our northerly boundary between our property and Central Jersey Nurseries just off site to the north, and then ultimately under Route 206 bypass.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, where's that outlet from the basin?
It's right here, Mike. You
Oh, okay.
see this? Yeah. And again, Mike, part of that was, we have a pretty good chunk of wetlands at the rear of our property. And rather than extend an outlet structure or disturbance into those wetlands all the way to the drainage course, we've utilized the scour hole to spread the discharge and minimize or really eliminate our impact to wetlands there.
And what's the bottom elevation of that basin? Wet pond? Comparing that to the elevation of those adjacent wetlands, I want to make sure we're not going to have a reversal drainage feature and end up draining those wetlands.
Yeah, we're at 75.
Proposed or existing?
No, the bottom of the basin's at 75, but the wet portion of it is at about approximately elevation 80, or 81, which is about the existing grade at the location of the basin. So I wouldn't expect that there be any, reverse like draining of this area.
Yeah, I mean, as you
Yeah.
know, whenever we build basins next to wetlands, our concern is always, drainage
Right.
of that existing wetland feature.
Yeah.
As long as it's designed that will not occur, that's what I want to make sure.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
guess, go ahead.
I was going to say, one other agency I neglected to mention earlier, I believe, is the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission, which looks at stream corridors and storm drainage with a critical eye. And we've received a report from them, obviously not, granting full approval because they require township approval before they'll certify and issue final approval. But they have in their most recent staff report indicated that we've met all of their stormwater management regulations.
Do you know when they issued that, Mike? Oh, July.
Yeah, it was in
September?
July. We actually, I think it might even be on the website because I did offer, I know they send a copy to the planning department staff.
Right. There's one dated May, there's one dated July, and one dated September.
Okay.
But I know they issued one for each, did they do one for each lot?
No, that was
Yeah.
likely separate reports in response to us replying to the questions they had.
So I want to go back and look at the September report.
You find it.
I guess one of my questions is, and I didn't get a chance to look at, and I think it was supplied, the traffic report. I guess I'm a little concerned with the new site that's going in across from this, that has the multi-unit and the affordable housing in it. I don't, Patrick, how many units are going in across from this? Do you know off the top of your head?
Mr. Chairman, I do not know offhand, but I believe it's 8 buildings plus a clubhouse.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's at least 8 buildings and a clubhouse.
8 buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
126 units.
Yeah, I
How
forget how
many?
many offhand.
160?
I think it's a 126.
126? So I guess I'm a little concerned about, traffic in that portion coming out of there. I know when I've come out of the Bridgeway facility to try and make a left out of there, extremely difficult, extremely
Yeah.
difficult.
We actually, we've been to the county for this application, and they've already issued, let's say, approval. And the impacts to traffic for this 25 additional beds is really, I'll say, de minimis. It even, it doesn't amount to what would be considered a substantial change. But to your point, and it's a good point, there as part of that project to the south of us, known as Amwell Terrace, there were county reviews and approvals, and part of that process included locating the driveway, the main driveway to that site, immediately opposite the main entrance to the Bridgeway facility. And I think that's where, not too long ago, there was one through lane in each direction on Amwell Road. But I don't know if you've noticed, and I think this really had a substantial improvement result in that not only part of the Amwell Terrace project, but actually the county did it as part of their repaving of Amwell Road, where they provided for a designated middle left turn lane in Amwell Road so that, people waiting to make a left into Bridgeway or even a left into our easterly driveway aren't in the way of the through lanes. And then the other improvement was, I think, really helping to channelize both the through lanes, including one of the other aspects is coming from Route 206 toward this location. As you passed the driveway entrance to ShopRite and came close to the traffic signal by AutoZone, it narrowed from 2 lanes to 1 lane, and it seemed like people didn't want to go into 1 lane, but really raced and passed people on the right, even as far to the east as in front of this facility. But the new traffic striping by the county forced that lane merger if you're headed east much closer to that. In fact, in advance of the traffic signal at the AutoZone. So now you really have true single lane traffic in an east and westbound direction when you get to this location.
Thank you.
So that's hopefully all, improvements to make the existing conditions even safer. Yeah.
Can Ed Cook talk about the habitat and endangered species and that sort of information relative to the site and the surrounding areas?
I'm assuming, this is Fred Kinzer, I'm assuming that was the owner. I don't know if Ed Cook is on as the owner, but he is the only other one I see. I don't see his name here.
He was on originally.
Yeah, I don't know where he went, Deb. I don't know if he dropped
Okay.
off.
That's fine. That's fine. Does any of the commission members have any other questions?
Debbie, I just have a few questions for Mr. Ford,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Hi, Mr. Ford. Yes, I saw we got the DEP permit back on Friday. I was just catching up in the office today. One question about the basin, was there any comment from NJD DOT about any impact on the bypass facility?
No, we're only disturbing 1/10 of an acre of wetlands for the GP6 filling, and we're buffer averaging only about 4,000 square feet of wetland transition area. And part of our application included providing them with the drainage report. We had no, I'll say, responses from DEP with regards to drainage or additional work that we needed to do. So we complied with, their requirements as part of that DEP wetland permit.
Okay, just for the, I mean, I know, but just for the record for the commission's knowledge. One other comment that I have involves the tree mitigation. Can you go over that in a little bit more, please?
Yeah, I think you might have logged on after I highlighted that. I described to the board that we are impacting trees by virtue of putting the basin on where we have to put it, which is the low end of the site. And we're implementing the economic hardship waiver section of the tree mitigation ordinance. And we are providing for additional plantings, or the plantings are being used along our northerly boundary immediately adjacent to the parking lot, and then primarily focused around the detention basin.
My apologies.
Yeah.
So Mike Ford, how many trees are being removed? How many are you required? And how many are you replacing? Just so that I have those numbers. I have them here. I read them because I don't have my magnifying glass, but I know they're here.
Okay. We're at,
I know you're removing over 1,000, I believe.
right, we're at about 6 acres of woodlands. We're disturbing about 3. That is, primarily where the basin is, and, immediately adjacent to the existing basin. It's not really for the addition and the calculation comes to some 2,106 trees required. But what I'd like the board to understand is also on that sheet 5, the tree mitigation and landscape plan, we identify the trees that we've located. And over 50% or about 50% of those trees are those eastern red cedar early successional tree growth. So it seems that this is, perhaps historically agricultural fields that have now been taken over by the cedars. So it's not a mature forest of maples and oaks. It's that cedar trees primarily.
And how many are you putting back?
166.
Do you know what the history of this property is? Where the basin is, where those 3 residents are? I know there was the hydroponic there. I do remember that. Did you have a phase 1 done on this property at some point in time?
Yeah, I'm not aware of whether there was a phase 1 done or not, Mr. Chairman. And as far as history, as long as I've been in Hillsborough, this is actually, you can see it actually, this is the old alignment of Amwell Road. And when they realigned Amwell Road in preparation for the bypass and put in
Right.
the bridge, that's why you have this little cul-de-sac.
Right.
And, even I'll say from a standpoint of future planning, part of our preparation, and I think maybe this also segues back to your comment about, the concerns about traffic and trying to, plan. What our thought is that we'd utilize this existing driveway and extend it on site. So perhaps, then it would be, again, not adding a curb cut to Amwell Road, but utilizing the existing actual public road for this little court.
Okay. You had said, looking in my notes, I thought you said that when that regional basin goes in, it would be able to accommodate, it's going to accommodate the 2 existing buildings, any potential building that's going to go to the east there. And you mentioned about anything going to the west of the buildings. Did you say that?
Yes.
So who owns that property in the west?
Mr. Pellegrino.
That is, okay, so,
Right. You might have seen it within the last year or two, and it's right off my page here, sorry, but there was an old house that was removed, and that's a long, deep lot as well. And what's envisioned there again is part of this campus environment, if you will, where that provides for a potential opportunity to expand the Bridgeway facility to the west.
okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commission? So
Hey,
you're
Mike.
going, I'm sorry.
Mike Foley again.
Mike.
So this is a major development, right, or no?
From a stormwater standpoint, yes.
Okay. So, and did DEP approve that stormwater was part of their freshwater wetland permit, or?
Right. We
Who's
didn't need any
responsible?
we didn't need any flood hazard area permits. It was only the GP6.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you submit the stormwater management as part of your GP6?
Actually, the DEP permit was submitted by Mr. Cook. So I'm not, I don't know the answer to that.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is who's responsible, maybe Debbie, you know this, to approve that stormwater management basin?
I do not know. That would be Chris. Chris.
Yeah,
I thought it was DEP if it's a major development, part of another land use DEP permit.
I do not know.
Well, we do have that permit, and I actually furnished copies of it. We received it on Friday.
Yeah, I
received
looked through
copies
it.
of it. Yeah,
I didn't see any mention of stormwater.
right. I
Well,
don't know
you know
that
what,
DEP
Mike
has any
Foley, Mike Foley, we'll ask that question
Okay.
in our report so that can be answered to the Board of Adjustments.
Okay. Another question, more of an overview question. But there was a, let me call it up here. Well, who's this from? The T&M report. Our Hillsborough planner. I mean, it's just dated September 25th, but Mike, did you get that? Do you typically get that? Is that in the process to be addressed? Maybe it's a better question for Debbie or Patrick, but I just want to see how those items and concerns were being addressed.
Yeah, I actually got it in preparation for this evening's meeting by going to your website like any other public and looking at all the documents that are posted on the Environmental Commission meeting. So that system is working.
Good.
And I've read through all those comments, Mr. Foley. I have no issue with all those comments, and we'll have to address all those as a condition of any approval the Board of Adjustment may grant.
Because that report also brought up the lighting issue that you mentioned.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also, 21 comments just about stormwater management.
Right. And I think a lot of
And
them
what's in the
focus to
letter.
what you said, which is maintenance, validating where access for maintenance would be carried out. And I didn't see any items in those comments that we couldn't address, and I'm confident we'd be able to address them to Mr. Euro. That's the Board of Adjustment engineer's satisfaction.
Okay.
Okay.
So Debbie, I think it's just important that, we include that those items in the T&M report must be addressed.
Correct. Yes, that will be in the report.
As part of, just real quick, Mike, is there porous pavement somewhere on here as part of this
Yes.
project? I thought I read.
And that's another good question. One of the three elements of stormwater management is the recharge. So we're adding some impervious coverage, and in order to meet the recharge requirement, we have provided a small area of porous pavement in parking spaces. That's to promote the groundwater recharge, and you don't get that out of the wet pond because the wet pond is lined. So you know,
Right.
yeah,
And then it's also addressing quality and quantity, all
it
three?
does. That's correct. Right. We provided a primary for the recharge. And part of the confidence in addressing Mr. Euro's comments is that we've already been fully vetted by the DNR Canal Commission, which really implements the same stormwater management regs in that NJAC 7:8 plus the DNR Canal Commission requirements, where, you know, it's actually in some respects a level slightly above NJDP in some ways.
Right. Actually, speaking of that, you said that there was a staff report. Can you submit that to the commission officially?
It's on your website in the Environmental Commission. It's the July 20th. I
I
just pulled
see
it up
that.
while we're talking here. This is
Or
great.
what, for,
This electronics is awesome, I'll tell you.
is this the DNR canal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's Mike, there's Mike Foley, because there's a lot of mics on the phone. There's 3 DNR Canal Commission reports on civic clerk, May, July, and September.
Were they part of
and
our mailing, Debbie, or?
I believe
Okay.
they were, yes. I
Oh,
did
really?
read them,
All
because
right.
there was more than one, and I wasn't sure whether they were per lot. And I did, but I will take a look at the September one. That's in one of my notes here before I write my report, just to verify that
Right.
they did approve everything except for the fact that that the township has to have approvals also.
All right, great. If we have it, I apologize. I didn't see it in
We
my
do.
Yeah.
hard copy stuff, and I honestly didn't have time to look on Civic Clerk.
Civic clerk has everything. It's
It's the
Quite
July
extensive.
6th report is the most recent one.
Okay,
And the last comments where they say, you know, they don't recommend approval at this time. The only items they ask for in additional information are the commission requires notice of county and municipal approvals. So you know what that means. That's when we're to the point where we've addressed all the technical comments. And the pages, you know, before that, the highlight, you know, all the stormwater management regs and how we comply.
Mike Ford, the approval from the DEP talked about a deed restriction.
Anytime, that's right. Anytime you modify the transition area of wetlands, you're required to file a deed restriction that reflects that approval and that new modified limit.
So no one can touch that new buffer area. Is that
Right,
correct?
there's the DP has a standard form of that restricted area that gets recorded with that document.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions for the applicant from members of the commission? Steve? Tom? Joanne?
I think you guys covered everything that I was looking at.
Okay,
I think it's a decent plan for the future.
Okay.
And
all right.
Like Mike said, like Mike Ford said, it's usually I get upset when trees get cut down, but it's early successional. Really, I mean, they're small cedar trees. I know it's just an old farmland, so not quite as worrisome as some other ones. So.
Excuse me, Debbie, this is Fred Kinsler. It looks like Mr. Mastropolito dropped off. I'm not sure exactly when.
Okay, thank
So
you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, so if there are no other questions, so you're going to the Board of Adjustments on October 7th, is that what I heard? Okay, we'll have a report then to Board of Adjustments prior to that.
Okay,
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very
Have a
much
nice
for your
night.
time.
yep.
Before you guys leave, Fred, do we want to open this? Let's open this up to the public to see if anybody on the public has any comments or questions for the applicant.
Sure.
Thank you.
So anyone from the public who has a question for this applicant or the presenter, please raise your hand. And if you want to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Chairman, I see nobody.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. All right.
Have a nice day.
We'll move on with our meeting.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. All right, we have is there any discussion from board members relative to old business or new business? No. Okay, Fred, let's open it up to any business from the floor other than the application that we just heard.
Sure. Again, anybody from the public who would like to speak on any other matters, you can please raise your hand. Again, seeing none, Chairman, you can
Great,
proceed.
thank you. Okay, at this time, it is 8:05. I would like someone to recommend adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Recommend adjournment.
Who said that? Tom?
I think Mike and I said at the same time, but I think I was first, so.
All
Coin
right,
flip.
all right, I need a second.
Well, I guess I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All right, all right, we're good then. Meeting's adjourned 8:05. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
board.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a
Good
good
night.
night.